Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Season 1, Episode 3 of Tales of the Walking Dead. Another great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I was quite surprised when it was revealed that this was an Alpha episode. Because to be fair, we got some of Alpha's origin in, well, her and Lydia in the original show, so to have an episode dedicated, because this is actually post the origins we got initially, because we got things from Lydia's perspective, everything, the basement with her dad. So this is like after that, and they're on this because at first when I heard Alpha's voice, I was like, wait, what? And then we saw that Lady Brooke, I was like, oh, wait, where is this? And then it's like, oh, then Alpha pops up, and so that ended up being interesting, and I like that. You can definitely see a lot of elements of this cruise, that this ship on the water is a representation of everything Alpha was super against in so many different regards. Because for one, she was kind of against community. She's against the notion of building anything. I mean, she already kind of had that notion already, I think, after everything in the basement, like that already kind of cemented that, and just being here just made her lean into that even more. Because here you have Brooke, who's kind of taking charge on this boat. It's like, right, we're out at sea, we're fine. As long as we kind of don't step onto land, like the dead can't get us, so we're fine. But it's like Brooke tried to keep some form of normalcy, which, considering everything that she went through, Lydia enjoyed that a lot. And sadly, it's just like this situation, you can tell she took, I think it's a common, I think maybe, and that kind of lends itself to why Lydia, out of anyone amongst the Whisperers, was able to be more convinced by Henry than anyone else. I mean, to be fair, Gamma was in a similar regard. Granted, that's just because, Alpha killed her sister and everything. So, there's that. But, she was the one that kind of took the least amount of convincing. I mean, some convincing, but it's I think that was already ingrained in her. She stuck with her mom out of fear, and also her mom made it go no, you need me to survive. So it is that thing of, you understand where Alpha started at, but to be fair, Dee, she had lost her mind a little along the way. She talked about it, she was 9 years old when she killed her daddy. Then she was like, yeah, I didn't mean to kill kill Lydia's dad, but it's in the end, she's I thought it was in the best interest, in the long run, it was kind of a better choice because he was weak, and everything is about making Lydia strong, because she's afraid that Lydia gets so associated with this life that Brooke is teaching her in Dee's mind. It's you're teaching my daughter a lie of this is the way to you're pretending like the world outside hasn't fallen apart, that we aren't surrounded by death. You're trying to live a normal life. That's a lie. And because of that, you're living this comfortability, and that makes you blind and weak. And you could easily get blindsided by what the world really has to offer. But once again, Lydia latches onto it because, she's 9 years old at this time, and she gets to have a life. And, after everything that went down previously, she's terrified of her mom. And now she found someone that kind of gives her the niceties, kind of gives her able to kind of have some form of a childhood back. Because even with everything that's going on, the main group characters we followed over the course of the original series have always made a point to try and give the children in their lives some form of normalcy. That was always the goal. That's what these communities were for, but that's the whole notion from D/Alpha's perspective of none of that lasts, because it's all a facade, and you trying to pretend like the world, trying to claim back the world the way it was. It's no, that's against the nature of things, and it's just a lie that's going to ultimately leave you vulnerable and weak. And she wants to be strong. She needs to be strong so that she can be there for her daughter, because everything I do is for her sake. But it's also that I need to make her stronger so that if anything ever does happen to me, I know that she's strong enough to take care of herself. So there are these moments where you see the sweetness in what she does, but it kind of gets corroded by, that love and devotion and overprotection becomes so twisted and contorted. And it's to be fair, in the long run, what she was taught by her mom, it's hard to say whether that was for the best in the end, because it's who's alive now and who isn't? Lydia's still alive, Alpha's not. So maybe in the end it kind of, I mean, hell, like Lydia was going to kill herself. Was that, no, was that, I'm trying to remember, or was that, I'm trying to remember how season 10 ended. Well, the base show and not the bonus episodes of, I can't remember, was it Carol who was trying to lead the dead over the edge and Lydia brought her back? I want to say that was how that went. It wasn't, yeah, I kind of flipped that. But either way, because her mom's teaching her, like, right, you can't rely on people. Because also the boat show, this whole sequence showed you also, like, the opulence that people kind of have, considering like the world is dead. And it's like, right, I guess it's like you want to keep some form of normalcy, and how you unite people is over that normalcy. And it's also how you like keep people from losing their minds. You give them some form of what they had before. But once again, you get, complacent to some extent, I think. Man, Billy turned out to be such a douchebag, the bartender, when he's like, "Oh, you should make some more effort, more of an effort." And Dee was like, "Wait, what?" At first, I was like, "Oh, he is coming out the wrong way. He's still saying in the douchey way," but I was like, he's most likely saying you need to make more of an effort to probably like spend more time with your daughter or something. I thought that, like, maybe try fit in a little bit more. To some, I was like, it's still douchey, but I was like, but he's like, no, like, look at you. You kind of look like shit. I was like, fuck you. Holy shit. He was like, I was like, you are such an asshole. That's have zero tact. But he's talking about, like, look all that Brooke's trying to do. And then there's people like you who come in here and you're kind of taking advantage of, like, Brooke's niceties and all that she's building, and you're not being grateful. You're not trying hard enough. It's like, if you're not going to try, you might as well just stay in your room the entire time. I was like, fuck this dude. I was like, he's such a garbage person. But it's also because she doesn't believe in all that. It's like, what's the point of getting all, like, what, the world isn't like that. That's not what the world is anymore. You guys pretending like it is just you deluding yourselves. So, but it's like, yeah, Lydia enjoys being around Brooke because she gets to have some form of normalcy and gets away from her mom. And she's constantly having that thrown in, Dee has that constantly thrown in her face throughout the episode. Everyone kind of talking about almost like how much of a, and she takes super offense to, like, no, everything I've done is for my daughter. Don't ever say that I'm a failure. Like, I'm failing my daughter in any shape or form. Everything I do is for her sake. So then there was that guy, was it Mr. Langston or something like that, who went missing. I was like, okay, that's weird. I was like, okay. It's like, well, who's the last person who saw him? It's like, well, Billy was serving him, and Billy was like, oh yeah, like, we took him back to his room. That's the last time we saw him, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, okay, that seems weird. And eventually, Dee ended up seeing Billy, like, dump something in the water. And then it turns into a whole thing of, yeah, he dumped the mirror. Like, he was trying to, because I think she had, like, when she was initially at the bar, she saw him go, like, in the back, and she saw something kind of shiny. So I was like, right. And then she notices, like, there was people out, and, like, she saw the dead were gathered around. It's most likely because also she started noticing, like, the lights were flickering off, like, at the beginning when it was her, Brooke, and Lydia. And then I think that's what she had noticed, like, the lights were flickering again. I think that was him also, like, signaling who's ever out there. And so whoever they were probably were like, that's probably why the dead were so gathered around, because there were people nearby. But she just seems crazy and paranoid. Once again, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean that they're not out there to get you, so. But she had confronted Billy, and he's like, no, it wasn't me, and it makes Dee seem crazy. And then he's like, oh my God, she has a knife, and he jumped off the boat. I was like, first and foremost, that's such an overreaction to, oh my God, she's threatening to kill me. Then why wouldn't he, like, get somewhere where she couldn't? He's like, it would basically put him and the entire boat between him and her. Like, why would he jump in the water? Oh my God, she's trying to, like, no. I was like, oh, he got caught. He super got caught. And she called him out. Like, right, her suspicions were right. Like, something was off about Billy. She's just like, I don't trust him. And it's like, right, we've known him the least amount of time. He's only been on a boat for about 3 weeks. But it's like, yeah, that reaction immediately was like, oh, she was right. They're like, well, we can't go back for him. We can't even look for Mr. Langston. We don't have the fuel for that. We got to just keep going. And now Dee is, like, kind of getting grilled about the whole thing. And now Lydia's scared of her because like the way she was acting with the knife and everything probably made her think of like, no, it's just like, it's like dad all over again. So Brooke hid her away. It's like, right, your daughter doesn't want to be around you. And then shit hits the fan when Billy comes back with his boys. And Billy's not the sanest person himself because he latched onto what Brooke is. He's like, yeah, the fact is this is all great, fantastic, but a lot of you don't appreciate it. He's like, right, I'm going to get rid of some of you people who don't fit the mold of what this whole thing is. Like, you're supposed to dress a certain way. I'm like, he latched onto like the wrong things about it. He went in a very like psycho direction with all of this that he's like, oh, look at all that Brooks built. It's like, right, you're going to keep up the cheer and pep of this place, but he's like, yeah, we're gonna change things so that things are kind of better. It's like gotta kill 6 people, make enough room for me and my boys. And it's like, it's like, no, we could all work together and stuff like that. But even Brooks like, like, what'd you expect? You kill 6 people in this boat, and we're all gonna live happily ever after. And he was like, well, yeah, I mean, things are gonna have to change, but you get to keep doing your whole pep thing, keep everyone motivated, keep everyone happy type of situation. But I'm like, yeah, he's kind of off his rocker if he thinks like, and then he starts popping people, and then it turns into a thing of, well, what do we do? And it's like, you kind of bring out the worst in people when rather than coming together. I mean, because initially one of the guys was like, he hasn't seen, what was it? I want to say it was, he was saying like he hadn't seen, he was saying that D was busy. Like, so he was trying to be like, hey, don't go after D. He was trying to be a decent enough guy. But, Billy's like, I know the schedule. Like, and we're pretty strict about the schedule. So he's like, I know what you're saying is horse shit. So, but the moment, like, people started dropping dead, one of the guys was like, all right, kill her. She doesn't do what she's supposed to. It's like, no, fuck you. You're the one that sucks up to Brooke all the time. And it's like, yeah, start turning into a situation. People start turning against each other. And then we get into that point where they're like, no, we'll find D and Lydia for you. Just let us go. I'm like, yeah, we could do that. But one of the guys was like, yo, we really shouldn't be doing that. It's a kid, So showing like, yeah, people can be terrible, which, but not everyone is. These people were terrified. It still sucks that when the time was when the going got tough, they were willing to sacrifice you and your daughter for what they, to increase their chance of survival. It's that self-preservation. But I thought Dee was going to immediately like kill all the bad guys. I mean, to be fair, they were armed, so she got like maybe 2 people before it all went down, and she immediately got because she knew that Lydia was hiding in the dinghy, so it's like, right, she just took off with the dinghy and just like shit hit the fan on the boat. And I think just everyone ended up dead. There was no like, oh, Billy popped up. Like, cause I was thinking that she'd kill like Billy and his people and then she'd eventually rally everyone on the boat under her. And that I was like, oh, this is how the Whisperers started. It's like, nope. Got off the boat. Once again, Lydia's terrified of her. But then we see kind of like the beginning makings of it because, like she cuts over in a walker that fell on her and dragged Lydia, and it's like, just go to that place where you don't have to focus on anything, and we just see nothing but dead bodies around. So everyone is dead to the point they end up running into Brooke, and D was going to kill her because it's like, yo, you made my daughter weak. You told her, oh, this is what everything could be, and then it all fell apart. And it's like, oh, you kind of put it on D, but I'm like, this is all Billy's fault. Like, how is it her fault? It's like, well, I guess because you were trying to talk this situation down. To be fair, like 2 people had already gotten like executed, so you weren't really winning. But I guess it's like you didn't help de-escalate the situation. You didn't stick around to help us. You killed some people, then set everything in motion and then bounced. It's almost like, and it is something I think both her and Lydia were saying that you wanted this to happen. You did this on purpose. It's like, but I think it's for her. It's like, right. This whole thing was a sham, and the easiest way to get away was to kind of let things escalate and start popping off so she could slip away with Lydia. And seeing Lydia being so defiant and scared of her, I thought was so interesting because she was so... Her mom has such a grip on her. I mean, she was away from her mom, but the moment her mom showed up, it's like, oh, to be fair, she always kind of like fell back in place when it came to her mom, but that side of her was still there later on when she was just like, no, I'm staying here. I'm not going back with you, Mom. So I just think that's interesting to know, like at such a young age, because that fear hadn't been struck. I mean, it was there, but she was trying to get away from her mom as fast as she could. But, and well, we know that Lydia eventually grows up to kind of just be like, yeah, kind of go along with what her mom wants because she was so afraid of her mom, and she knew if she ever ran away, her mom would just track her down again. So there was no escaping her. Like, I guess once they kind of got mixed up in what they eventually got mixed up in. She just, once again, she just wanted some, because once again, her mom wasn't in the best frame of mind, and wasn't in, but it was like I said, it just, the good nature intention of wanting to protect your daughter got muddied along the way, and she kind of went about it the wrong way. That's why I feel so complicated about being like, oh, what she taught Lydia has kept her alive. But it's like, you're alive because of your mom, but at the same time, you're also alive in spite of your mom, because you're around like people you can trust. You found a new home. You found a place to belong, a group. Whereas your mother said, like, really all you had to rely on was yourself. Because even though they became part of the Whisperers, yeah, but it wasn't the same thing, because groups kind of get so caught up in the materialistic is kind of how her perspective is, where it's like, the Whisperers were very minimalistic. They never like held on to anything because nothing was kind of real. Like, so it's like, why hold on to a place or things? None of it matters. All you have is survival. But there was that line from Brooke. It's like, okay, so she does survive, but what is she surviving for if this is kind of like the life you're kind of building for her? Like, it won't be anything worth, that light won't get to, you're not planting positive seeds to sprout and grow, and she's found those seeds to plant and grow now that she's with like the group she's currently with, obviously. But with her mom, that was never going to be anything. Like, who she was going to be stunted and cut off at the roots to be replanted and made and forged into who her mom wanted her to be. Her mom wanted her to be more like her, and she became her own person again. Like, it was always there. So that's why I'm like, yeah, everything Lydia is, yes, there's a part of it, it's a byproduct of you, but a lot of it is a byproduct in spite of you. So even to the point Alpha was going to, I keep saying Alpha, well, I'll go ahead. Just, at that point, like, Dee was going to kill both her and Lydia, because Lydia was like, I can hear the fairies. Can you please just let me go, Mom? Just let me go. And it's like, I'm sorry, baby. I was so focused on not being able to live in this world without you that I never thought about, you in this world. So it's like, right, I'll save you. I'm sorry I failed to save you. And I'm going to release you from this. She's like, in that moment, she's like, yeah, this is, because she references the fact is that Lydia's 9. She's like, she was so small. And it's like, I must have been like this small when she killed her, when Dee killed her own father. Okay, I love that whole conversation about, like, right, the whole Brooke thing, the whole boat thing. It was her trying to, what's the exact word? Repent, essentially, for like her sins and the mistakes that she made. She wanted to kind of like make up for it, so that in Lydia's eyes, she wouldn't be so scared of her. It's like, right, I made these mistakes and I kind of repent for it. Because she's like, after she killed her dad when she was a little girl, she tried everything to kind of just live a normal life, and that's how she ended up meeting Lydia's dad, and eventually ending up in that basement and things kind of turning out the way they did. But it's like, no, I've got to repent for it. But it's like, she said this interesting line that I'm gonna go, I can't remember it, so it was something of the nature of just kind of like, right, it's kind of past the point of repenting anymore. I'm kind of over that, just because it's like, right, that dulls your senses, it's like pretending to be someone she isn't. Like, when she ends up meeting Hera later on, she even says, like, right, you kind of forged me into who I am. It's like, that was the day Dee died, and she was reborn as Alpha. But that was so interesting to me when, like, they were hearing the whispers. I was like, because I was like, oh, well, she was telling Lydia be quiet, and they were whispering a little bit. I was like, oh, is that how the Whisperers started? It's like, no, the Whisperers were already a pre-established group led by a woman named Hera. We don't know if she was the first leader of it, but she found, I guess they had been amongst, like, when Dee thought she was seeing the dead in the distance on the shore, like they were in a boat, like she was keeping an eye out. That was most likely them walking amongst them. So she's probably kept an eye on everything from afar and seeing, probably like even while, like after the boat situation, keeping an eye and seeing on how strong Dee is. That probably like solidified things of like, oh, we want you in our ranks. So. But yeah, because I don't think they never ever said that Alpha was the one who started the Whispers. I don't know if this is something canonical to the comics or is this something they're just making specifically for the show. But I guess maybe that was just an assumption on my part because they never ever expressly said, but the way they left things so open ended, like they made it seem like, oh, after everything in the basement, she eventually. Well, we know that I can't remember if it was still part of Alpha's and Lydia's backstory or was it part of Beta's backstory when they first met. Because I definitely remember that being. I don't remember if that was when they were already the Whisperers and they got separated, or was that like sometime after the basement and maybe they met Beta and then eventually that led to. I don't remember the order of events. Because like I said, I definitely remember like that kind of being a little bit of Beta's backstory, but I don't remember if, like I said, if they were wearing the mask and stuff at the time, like they were already part of the Whispers at the time, and they might have been. I don't remember. That might have still been when she was like lower ranked. She wasn't like she hadn't become the Alpha yet, or maybe she had. I don't remember. But it's interesting to know, first and foremost, like I said, that she didn't start the Whispers. Who knows how long that group was around? And I thought it was interesting too, because like the woman, well, she could have reinvented herself just like Dee did. It's like, oh, I'm no longer Dee, I'm Alpha. So who knows what Hera's real name was? And they never showed you her face. But they made sure to show you at the end that Dee was talking to, like, I guess, like, either her severed head or just, like, her face had already been removed. Because it's like, right, the mask that she wears had, like, blonde hair. So it's like, she wears Hera's mask. Oh, she wears, Hera's face. So either Hera got turned into a walker and she skinned her and wore her face as a mask, or it was like, I challenge you to be Alpha. Because that might have already been a pre-established thing. It might not have been something that Alpha made up. It's like, right. Because we know, like, she was challenged as leader of the, you can be challenged as leader of the Whisperers, kind of as, like, very, like, old school in that regard. The strong lead, right? So either like she challenged Hera and won, or I assume like there's no way Hera would have just naturally died any other way, so it had to be a challenge thing. So, I mean, it's almost befitting too because eventually after Alpha died, Beta like took part of her face, made it into a mask and combined it with what was remaining of his. So the two Alpha and Beta kind of became one. It's just interesting just filling in some of those blanks when it comes to Dee and just kind of furthering, like, leading her down the path to becoming Alpha like she did. She was already there, and it took because if she hadn't met the Whisperers, like, her and Lydia would be dead because she would have killed both of them just to kind of, because it's like, right, I want to end my baby's suffering, you're not made for this world, or I gotta kill you, but also, like, I'm not going to live in a world without you because I failed you, so she would have killed herself. I also didn't talk about it. She scarred Brooke's face. She's like, oh, I want this to be a reminder that, like, me, a constant reminder of me and the fact that you failed my daughter, and I'm like, are we supposed to know who Brooke is? It's like, is she someone that popped up and I'm just not remembering? I don't think so, but I could be wrong. I feel like I don't remember anyone specific like that with Brooke, but once again, like I said, I could be mistaken. That might have just been an extra thing that's like, oh, that person's out here in the universe, or maybe eventually Alpha would have tracked her down and killed her. It felt like such a specific thing that I'm like, there's significance to that, and I'm just not sure what it is. Do let me know, or maybe I'll look into it on my own after this. But there was another character, looking it up really quickly, named Brooke in The Walking Dead, but the one that comes up is the one from this series, Tales. So I don't think she is someone we're supposed to know. I think it's just just kind of an added kind of like flavor to the world of like, oh, this character exists and she might still be out there. I mean, to be fair, Alpha's dead and buried now, but still. It does also put things in an interesting time frame because we know at this point she's 9. Lydia is, and I want to say when she's first introduced in season 9, she's like 15, so it's been about 6 years in between, which also kind of fits the time frame for like, cause I guess RJ would be about 6 after the time, because there was probably about a 6-year time skip, something like that, during season 9 after the Rick situation, and because once again we time skip a couple months. Michonne was like super like parent, she was pregnant, and then like eventually you time skip again, and like RJ's a little older. So I think that was kind of like a 6-year time skip. I don't know if he was roughly like 6 or something like that, but I think it just kind of puts things in perspective. It's not always clear like how much time kind of passes in between some of the seasons and stuff, but still. Once again, the bonus episode of Negan kind of implies like, hey, there was like we're in the 12th year of this, the world having fell, so just thought that was just kind of interesting, kind of giving you a little bit of a timetable. So it's like, so that basically says like Alpha was with the Whisperers for like 6 years. Who knows when she eventually took over? And just kind of interesting, once again, getting that backstory and even adding more significance to it. It was almost like, oh, the torch kind of getting passed from person to person, like, oh, she took Hera's face and wore it as a mask, and oh, Beta would eventually do that for her. And he was kind of like, well, there's still the remnants of the Whispers that are still out there, but leadership wise, Beta was the last one. So just a lot of really, really interesting things. Obviously, I'm really excited to see where the next episode ends up taking us going forward with all of this. What story, what characters we get introduced to next. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and good